Hi guys, and welcome back to another DrAce video, and today we're going to be playing MotoGP 21. We're going to be playing MotoGP 21 and discussing the recent MotoGP race in Austria for Styria Round 2. And of course, what a magnificent set of Grand Prix that we had in Austria in both weekends. To be honest with you, both of them have been very entertaining and very interesting and intriguing. There's been some very good stuff happening, a little bit of bad, but mostly pretty good. So we're going to start off with the Grand Prix that started last, and that is MotoE. We're going to start from the bottom and work our way up to the top, because of course the end result should always be MotoGP. But as far as MotoE goes, a very short, quick couple of laps sprint race. It's always the same in MotoE, just very short races. And you got to say, I like the idea and the format of it being short races, because if it was more for like 20 laps, 30 laps, it'd probably be a little bit more long-winded, but the fact that it's so short and so quick to the point makes it extremely exciting. But of course, Lucas Tulovic taking the victory. Brilliant job from him. He was absolutely dominant from the second the race started. He shot out to the front and did not look back once. It did look like he was going to get caught up by Eric Granado and Dominic Egerter, and it definitely looked that way towards the penultimate lap and beyond. The laps were getting taken away from him chunks by chunks, but unfortunately for the others, and fortunately for Lucas Tulovic, Eric Granado and Dominic Egerter started to battle it out, so the German was still able to hang on for victory. But Eric Granado qualified pretty badly, yet was still able to move on into second position. Granado was as far down as 13th on the E-pole session and started from 13th place on the grid, but yet still came all the way through and battled with all the riders from MotoE to get himself into second position. By the first lap he was up to about 7th place. It was pretty phenomenal stuff from Eric Granado, and you could see how much it meant to him, because qualifying so poorly in E-pole meant him to start so far down, and then having to fight back and work his way through the pack was absolute magic. He was really good. We didn't see much of the actual World Championship leader, and of course that was as Alessandro Zaccone. Started quite well, but then finished off in 6th position. Not the best result, but 10 points in the World Championship was better than nothing for Zaccone. He did lose a bit of points to Egerter and Granado, but he didn't lose points to Jordi Torres, who sort of didn't really seem to do much in this one. I expected more from the MotoE World Cup winner, just finishing a position behind Alessandro Zaccone, so therefore more points to the way of Zaccone rather than Jordi Torres. But to be honest with you, as far as the race goes, MotoE is pretty much the same every time. The riders just all battle it out straight at the front, start trying to jostle for position. It's kind of like a very large Moto3 race, where the riders are all together throughout the laps, but they are just bigger bikes, and they're no stranger of diving up on the inside, because of course the idea of the sprint race is you can't mess around, you have to move and go for it quicker than you need to. So pretty impressive stuff. MotoE was pretty good, but as far as the rest of the races go, I think we have more to discuss for the likes of Moto3, 2 and GP. So now moving on to Moto3, and I absolutely adore these 250cc motorcycles. They're absolutely awesome. Just seeing the carnage and the contact and the way these guys maneuver these bikes around, especially in a track such as Austria, is just absolutely brilliant. Romano Fenati took pole position in a pretty good qualifying session on Saturday, but couldn't quite just turn that into gold in the Grand Prix. He started first and finished in 5th place, but it didn't really tell the whole story, because Romano Fenati was competitive all the way through. He was very competitive with the likes of Pedro Acosta, Denis Onchu and Sergio Garcia, so major props to Romano Fenati, but unfortunately just couldn't quite hold on to a podium finish. But speaking of the podium, Sergio Garcia, after a bit of a redemption, if you will, from the previous Grand Prix, which of course he crashed into turn 9, which you can see on screen right now, against Pedro Acosta just last week. A bit of redemption as he beats Denis Onchu into turn 9 as well. So the corner he lost at last week, he redeemed himself and he got ahead of Denis Onchu for the Grand Prix victory. So therefore Sergio Garcia wins, with Denis Onchu second, and Dennis Foggia somehow putting the Honda on the 3rd step of the podium. Honestly, the Honda looked to be really struggling. You've seen the likes of John McPhee, Darren Binder, and of course Dennis Foggia, as already mentioned, just struggling to stay with these rebranded KTMs and the KTMs themselves. Only 2 Hondas in the top 7, 3 Hondas in the top 10. It's really now the KTM show in Moto3, from Pedro Acosta on the factory KTM team, to the satellite Tech 3 KTM team, to the Gas, to the Husqvarna. They are absolutely dominating in the sense of the World Championship, and I don't know when this was going to change, really, because Hondas and KTMs were pretty much all the same, or Hondas had a bit of an edge in the sense of acceleration, and now all of a sudden KTM have just completely kicked down the doors and taken everything away from them. But it was a thrilling Grand Prix battle. Pedro Acosta versus Sergio Garcia versus Onchu versus Fenati versus Masia. Typical Moto3 carnage and classic Grand Prix racing. Just guys not wanting to give up position, elbows out, fairings battering. Everything was just brilliant. It was honestly one of the best races of the season. Very pleased to see Sergio Garcia take his another victory, because of course we want to keep the championship alive, and Pedro Acosta kind of looks like he's already got it nailed in the bag. But Sergio Garcia is putting a bit of a charge, and he might actually just give Pedro Acosta a bit of trouble. Sad to see the Turkish rider Deniz Oncu didn't quite get the victory, but with the presence of Toprak and Kenan Sofuoglu, he's still able to get it on the podium, so great job. And especially after the disaster last week, where he changed the tyres on the line and he had to start from the back of the grid. Major improvement for Deniz Oncu. But as far as the actual race goes, bit of contact between David Salvador and Andrea Mino in the final corner. David Salvador taking Mino out. Ayumi Sasaki also taking a bit of a tumble into the final corner after being bumped by Darren Binder. Of course, dive bomb Darren at his usual best, taking out Ayumi Sasaki. No penalty was given to Darren Binder, but it was a little bit firm, but it wasn't overly aggressive. It was just, unfortunately, both two men wanted the same piece of tarmac. Adrian Fernandez had to retire due to some sort of mechanical issue. But as far as the rest of the Grand Prix goes, very interesting race. A lot of names featured up in the top positions. Gabriel Rodrigo, though, I just want to quickly mention him. Absolute bizarre weekend for Gabriel Rodrigo. I think he can't wait to leave Austria and move on to the next Grand Prix in Silverstone. He was given a penalty to start at the back of the grid for contact in FP3. Just on the exit of turn 3, he took out Yamanaka, I do believe it was, and unfortunately for him, he then took out Tatsuki Suzuki in the qualifying session, which resulted, and it doesn't really make sense to me, this is going to be a bit of a controversial subject, if you will, but my opinion will be as follows. Gabriel Rodrigo took out a rider into turn 3 in a practice session. He was given a pit lane start. After that, he then took out Tatsuki Suzuki in a qualifying session, which in my opinion holds a little bit more weight. He was only given a long lap penalty. To me, that doesn't really make sense. I think personally he should have just been given, I don't know, a double long lap penalty or a ride-through penalty that completely scuppers his race. I'm not sure, but that just seemed quite bizarre that the qualifying crash carried little weight compared to the practice. I'm not sure. It's a it's a subject I'm not going to get involved with right now, but let me know your guys' opinion on that one. But for now, I guess we'll move on to Moto2 because we have a lot to discuss in the main category of MotoGP, so I'm trying to quickly get through these so we can fit everything in to this small video. So now we'll move on to Moto2, the second Grand Prix of the race weekend. And Moto2, very interesting race, not usually what you would expect. Big names being further back in the grid and some of the lesser known names up there fighting for the best positions in a Moto2 Grand Prix. But of course, speaking of Raul Fernandez, once again, the Moto2 rookie, soon to be a MotoGP rookie with the Tech 3 KTM team, gets the job done once more. Brilliant performance from Raul Fernandez. He was under intense pressure from Ayagura for the whole duration of the Grand Prix. Ayagura was pounding the pressure on, was really putting the pressure on, putting the willies up Raul Fernandez, let's say, but he still didn't break, and that is a championship ride there. And speaking of World Championship, we didn't quite see much of Remy Gardner, fell backwards towards early on in the Grand Prix and finished in 7th position. But looking at 3rd place, the rumours are that Augusto Fernandez, who finished in 3rd position, is going to be going up to MotoGP to join the Sepang Racing team. Not sure who the sponsor's going to be, but it will be a satellite Yamaha. But of course, finishing 3rd place for Augusto Fernandez and being, quite frankly, the best Elfmark VDS rider out there compared to Sam Lowes, he's doing himself a massive favour by competing so well. He seems to have turned it on a bit. Now, the last time we seen Augusto Fernandez this competitive was going back in 2019, perhaps. It's been a while since we last seen Fernandez being really good and being at the sharp end of the Grand Prix, but it is good to see Augusto Fernandez battling out for the top positions. He definitely deserves it. Sam Lowes, who started in pole position, finished in 4th place. Probably a little bit of a disappointment, but this is a bogey track for Sam Lowes. He doesn't really particularly like it, but he's done a good job to finish in 4th position, just behind teammate Augusto Fernandez. And of course, the battle behind, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, it didn't stop all the way through the battle for 5th position. Somkiat Chantra desperate for his top 5 finish. Celestino Vietti also the same. This battle went down to the final corner, and it was just thrilling. These two guys didn't give it anything. They gave it absolutely everything. There was nothing left on the table after these guys were done. And finally, into the final corner, Celestino Vietti dives up in the inside, but unfortunately did touch the green at some point and was demoted down to 6th position. So Somkiat Chantra wins out the battle for 5th position, and Celestino Vietti in 6th place. But great stuff for Celestino Vietti. I quite like Celestino. I remember seeing him come into Moto3, and instantly in his first Grand Prix, I think he took 2nd place. Something like that. I know he was pretty good, and I was very impressed with his talent, but he is a larger rider, so you think going up to Moto2 would be the key to success, but unfortunately it hasn't quite worked out for young Celestino Vietti yet. However, he has shown fantastic potential here in Austria, so we'll see what his confidence is going to be like going into Silverstone. A podium finish last time out for Aaron Canet right here in Red Bull Ring of Austria. Didn't quite work his magic here on yesterday's Grand Prix to try and get back onto the podium, so unfortunately no more bow tie. I'm still curious to see what that whole bow tie thing was about. He said if he wins he'll explain the reason of the bow tie, so I guess we've got to wait until then. But Marco Bezzecchi, probably the biggest surprise for me. One of my most favourite riders in World Championship racing, Marco Bezzecchi. Terrible, terrible race for him. Very surprising. From being so good and so dominant in Red Bull Ring last week, come again the week after and unfortunately finishing in 10th place. Never had the momentum, never had the speed, never really looked good in the Grand Prix. He just seemed off somehow. And of course 10th place is his actual worst finish. And I seen a few days ago, and speaking online, I think it was on Facebook of all the places, people were saying Marco Bezzecchi is extremely inconsistent, which I'm surprised at. I'm going to defend him here because his worst finish before this 10th place was a 6th place in Portimao. Every other finish since then has been better than 6th place. 4th places, 3rd places, 2nd places. It's kind of odd that they think he's inconsistent after one 10th place. This is his worst finish of the season after a victory. Yeah, you could say that's inconsistent at the same track, however, not overall inconsistent. I think it's a little bit too harsh on Marco Bezzecchi for that instance. But we did have a bit of turmoil going into turn 1, where a couple of riders got bumped. Cameron Beaubier, good job from the American, decided to take out pretty much 5 riders into the first corner. Major faux pas for the American. He bumped Joe Roberts into another couple of riders, and it was just absolute carnage. I believe Xavi Vierge was there, Yari Mantella was there, Jorge Navarro ended up hitting the floor. It was not good. A long lap penalty was given to Cameron Beaubier. It might have been a double long lap penalty now I think about it, and it well and truly deserved. Unfortunately, it was not a good move. Completely ruined Joe Roberts' races and so many other riders. So yet again, another bad result for the Americans. It seems like I say that every single time we do these videos, so I do apologise for bringing that up for you guys. Difficult Grand Prix for a couple of riders. Yari Montella, as mentioned, crashed out not longer after that one. Marcos Ramirez down on the gravel. Barry Baltus out of the Grand Prix. Lorenzo Dalla Porta, he started well, qualified decent, but went backwards immediately after the first couple of laps. Very, very disappointed for Lorenzo Dalla Porta. He doesn't look like he's going to get this Moto2 ride and hold on to it because his results are not good. And it's a shame because, of course, this is a Moto3 World Champion, of course. Lorenzo Dalla Porta is fantastic at what he does, and it's such a shame to see him not being able to compete into Moto2. It's probably just going to take a bit of time, but unfortunately, he's got a lot of digging deep to do right now. And final crasher is the other Moto3 World Champion, the current Moto3 World Champion, Alberto Arenas. Not sure what actually happened to him. I think we've just seen him walking away. Whether he was involved with that collision or crash at the beginning, I'm not too sure. But unfortunately for him, no points on offer and an early bath for Alberto Arenas. Now for the absolute craziest Grand Prix ever. MotoGP Red Bull Ring Austria 2 was absolutely fantastic. From the dry parts of the race to the wet parts right at the death, it was absolutely thrilling. The battle consisted of Pecco Bagnaia, Fabio Quartararo, Marc Marquez, Jorge Martin, Johan Zarco. Joan Mir was chasing them down as well. It was very, very interesting until the rain decided to fall right at the death. Now, before the Grand Prix had started, we were hearing the commentators discuss around the fact that it's going to rain heavily in about 10 minutes or something just before the Grand Prix starts. I do believe Philip Salac posted on Instagram that it was absolutely raining like cats and dogs just 10 minutes away from the circuit. It was really, really torrential rain where he was compared to where the Grand Prix was actually kicking off right now. And honestly, So many pensive looks, so many people looking at the skies, just wondering if this rain will come, and unfortunately for them, they just had to go for it. Rain flags were out for probably pretty much the majority of the Grand Prix, but it was never enough to actually stop the riders and say, hey, let's go back and get the different bike. But unbelievably, 4 laps to the end, the heavens opened, everything started bucketing it down, and things got a little bit interesting. Marquez, Bagnaia, Mir, Martin, Quartararo, all diving into the pits and leaving one Brad Binder, who you can see right now on your screen. Red Bull KTM factory team went into the last couple of laps confident, knowing that he has enough under that slick tyre to take the victory, and it was absolutely unbelievable. I can't discuss how crazy and how ballsy this move was by Brad Binder. You've seen all those other riders ahead of you dive into the pits. 4 laps to the end, the rain is coming down, it's on your visor, it's on the bubble, it's on the windshield of the bike. It's not looking too promising out there because the bike's going to start slipping and sliding, the tyres are going to get a little bit out of shape, but Brad Binder says, you know what, why not? Why not let it fly? And as he said after the Grand Prix, fortune favours the brave, and it certainly did. Brad Binder was your MotoGP winner right here in Red Bull Ring Austria 2. But what carnage, what chaos. But even before then, the Grand Prix itself was fantastic. Bagnaia was giving it to Marquez, Marquez was giving it to Martin, Quartararo was diving up at the inside of 2 or 3 riders into turn 3. Brilliant, brilliant race. There's so much story and so much talking point of this Grand Prix that we could be here for hours. It was absolutely brilliant. One of the favourite Grand Prix that I've ever witnessed. It was absolutely brilliant, but we will start discussing the actual finishing positions, and that of course was Brad Binder taking the victory, Pecco Bagnaia on wet tyres in 2nd place, and wet tyres for Jorge Martin in 3rd place. But absolutely bizarre to think that when all these riders dived into the pits, we had a totally different situation. At one point, Brad Binder, Aleix Espargaro and Valentino Rossi were going to be your podium finishers. If the race was going to end, who knows, maybe that could have been the podium. If the rain decided to stop, who knows, we could have had a different podium. But because the rain came down, it really bucketed it down. We had Pecco Bagnaia diving into the pits, getting the wet tyres, Marquez getting the wet tyres, and then trying to put some heat in. But unfortunately, the track isn't actually completely wet yet. So Bagnaia going into turn 3, hard on the brakes, can't get the bike stopped, temperature's not really right. Marquez trying to get it tucked into turn 1, trying to go really aggressively to get this victory, crashes out into the first corner. Another crash for Marquez this season, certainly not looking like the return that we expected from the 8 times world champion. Jorge Martin somehow still managed to come away with the podium, even though after all this drama. Joan Mir finished in 4th place, Luca Marini takes 5th. He was on slick tyres, just trying to nurse the bike around the track. Rossi was up there as well. Iker Lecuona finished in 6th place. Fabio Quartararo, of course, on the wet tyres, dived into the pits, got the fresh wets, and started carving his way through the much slower riders. For context for you, the last lap time for Pecco Bagnaia was a 1:35 on wet tyres. Brad Binder posted a 1 minute 50 lap round the Red Bull Ring of Austria on slick tyres here in this damp circuit. It was absolutely crazy. It was so crazy. It was brilliant, and there's just so much more to discuss. Johan Zarco was fighting up there, who was looking to me that he was probably going to be one of the favourites, crashed out into turn 9, so he didn't even see all this drama. He missed out. And the same can be said for Enea Bastianini. For some strange reason, his belly pan on the bike was not pushed in correctly, so his fairing got dragged off on the acceleration going up into turn 3. Miguel Oliveira, unfortunately after his injury, had a bit of a crash and unfortunately ended his Grand Prix early, but I think personally for him, with that damage to his right hand, I'd probably say he's probably glad that he didn't have to compete in that last part. But so many crazy stuff in that final part of the Grand Prix. Those last 4 laps were just stressful. I mean, Aleix Espargaro up there in 2nd position, Rossi in 3rd. I would have died. If Rossi had claimed his 200th podium in this situation, I would have been absolutely elated. But nonetheless, I'm still elated with the result because it was awesome. Brad Binder, what a man. Brad Binder is incredible. The whole Grand Prix was absolutely brilliant. If you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, then I suggest and strongly recommend you watch it after this video. But I guess now going into the final corner of Red Bull Ring of Austria for turn 10, that is going to conclude all my lap times in this video. If you're watching this, great. If you're not watching and just listening, great as well. But those are my lap times on screen right now for you to look at if you want to see what my performance was. But guys, all I can say is thank you to MotoGP for putting on another wicked show. It was absolutely brilliant. It's the greatest sport in the world. There's nothing I love more than MotoGP, and of course you guys as well. But on that note, thank you very much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed my take and my recap of MotoGP 21's Red Bull Ring of Austria Grand Prix. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, comment and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be alerted to every single DrAce upload. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next Grand Prix video. Ciao for now. Oh hi, didn't quite see you there. Good to see you're still here. If this video didn't quite sate your appetite, then why not watch some more DrAce content by clicking the video shown on screen now. Furthermore, if you would like to follow me on social media, you can do so now with the links down in the description. Consider subscribing so you don't miss a single DrAce video.